Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be turning some 3D prints into silicon bronze. Okay, so what we have planned for today, we have another Chris Redfield. We have a few of these Goku statues, which I think look pretty awesome. Another Grim Reaper. Okay, I lied. We still have one more piece that we're going to do. I wasn't happy with how many pieces we had, and I wanted something a little bit more extravagant and not just doing some wax copies of stuff I've already done before. So we have a much bigger piece that I want to do. I thought, what better to pair with Goku than doing a massive Shenron statue. So this thing is a little over 8 inches tall. Actually, I think the antlers go up to 9 inches tall. So casting a piece like this obviously is very difficult. It is not going to be easy, and there's a lot of things that I got to try to make sure I account for beforehand. I did break off one of his whiskers here. I gotta wax it together. I already did the other one. So that's obviously going to be the very first problem that we're going to have to address are these whiskers. These are very, very long and thin. Being thin isn't too big of an issue, but when they're very long like this, they're going to be very difficult to cast. In fact, they're probably going to be the hardest part of the entire piece to get right. Luckily, this model is connected at several points to the main base, which is pretty massive. So you can see like that section is connected to the midsection, which is connected to the base, which is also connected to the front and the tail. So I don't really think the dragon body itself will have any issues. The claws are another thin section that I need to make sure I'm careful with, and also the hair. And then the only other thing that I think would be a huge problem is just the sheer volume. So the size of this, since it's going to be cast solid, I have to worry about volumetric shrinkage. The main issue is making sure this platform at the bottom, since that's the thickest part, that's the part that's going to need a huge feeder. Okay, we got the sprue all set up. You can see we added a lot of vents and wax lines. So all the thinner ones are basically just vents to get out any trapped air. And I also added some pretty thick ones to the whiskers here to make sure that those fill out, hopefully. Alright, well that was almost a disaster. Luckily these three and that one back there poured perfectly, just like normal. But then this one, I severely underestimated how much plaster I was gonna have to put in it. We also had a leak down here. Luckily that kind of like sealed itself off after a little bit. I noticed it was really small leak as I was pouring, so I was like, hopefully it'll just seal itself, and it did relatively quickly. But then these two, this one I barely didn't have enough, and I didn't think it was worth mixing up any to top that off. So we just gotta wait a day for these to dry. So tomorrow night we'll throw these inside of our kiln. We'll burn out that 3D print pattern that's inside of the mold, and that'll leave us a hollow shell for the molten metal to go into. Okay, let's go ahead and scrape these flat so that way when we put it on our vacuum table, we'll hopefully get a good seal. Okay, that's all done. Let's get these off the bases now so we can put them in the kiln. Jeez. Nice. Tearing the hot glue up with it. Oh, nice. I'm going to wrap this completely with a bunch of steel wire so that way it doesn't crack open from the weight of all of this metal, because there's going to be a ton of molten metal in there. I'm going to wrap it all the way around with steel wire several times to prevent that from opening up and cracking. Man, this thing's going to be really fun to take out of the kiln at like 900 degrees. There, I think she's ready. Now, maybe a little bit overkill, but I feel like we kind of need it. This is the biggest casting I'm ever gonna have done. Looks like 800 in the center. On the side. It's definitely taking a little bit longer to heat up than I thought. I knew it was going to take longer because of this absolutely massive one and also some of the bigger ones, but it's still taking quite a while. I'm actually going to remove a couple of these spacers so that way it heats up a little bit more. Okay, so since I don't have a thermostatically controlled kiln, a lot of this is based off just intuition and monitoring it with my handheld thermometer. So when I did my second cycle, towards the end of it, it was about 500 degrees, which honestly isn't very good. Normally when I do my runs, it's around like 750-ish. And I knew it was going to be a little bit lower because of that massive one and also some of those bigger ones that are inside the kiln. But this is quite a bit lower than I'd like, so I cranked it up. And it's starting to climb. It's up to 800 now, but I need it up to 1200. I need it to get to 1200, and it's got to stay there for at least a couple or even a few hours. matter what I do, I can't get a good vacuum pull. I have no idea what's going on. How's this not getting a vacuum seal? That thing is still glowing, and it's been about, I don't know, 15 minutes. Look how red hot that is. And I have my exposure like all the way down. It is still very, very hot. I mean, some of these ones that I first started opening are pretty hot as well. Here's a first look for you guys. There's the platform for the Grim Reaper here. There's a few additional things I added, which you guys will see when I clean it up. But man, I cannot for the life of me get this vacuum table working properly. I don't know what else to do with this vacuum table. It's like every time I test it, I get a decent vacuum. It's not like the best or anything, but I get a vacuum. And then it's like every time I do some casting, I can't get a freaking vacuum pull. I tried gooping up everything with silicone to try to like seal off anything that possibly could have been leaking. So now I'm wondering if maybe the plaster is just so porous that it's seeping through. And I know some of you might be thinking like, well, what about the seam on the flask? Well, it did it with like the really thick 1/4-inch steel ones too. I couldn't even get a good seal on those. I think there was one maybe that seemed like it was actually getting a vacuum. I just don't know what else to do. I don't know if I need a stronger vacuum pump or what, but I mean, when I close this valve, I get a vacuum right away, instantly. And then when I have the valve open, which I have a very short hose here, and I also decreased the size of the chamber. So it was that size, which is like, I think, 10 inches tall. And I reduced it down to like a 3-inch or 4-inch chamber. And even then, I still can't get it to work. I've seen people with like triple size that chamber and even a weaker vacuum pump, they still get a vacuum. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I really need to figure it out because it's definitely irritating. And man, that was cutting it a little bit close. I'm glad I kept topping off the crucible because that filled all the way to the top and used the entire crucible. And I probably still could have even used a little bit more, as you can see here. Might ruin that bucket. We'll see. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into our analysis. Now, I did try to clean up as much of the plaster as I could on these statues. They will be getting sandblasted right after this, so that way I can clean up the rest of the plaster and also find all of the imperfections. These things, the memorials for like the troops, turned out pretty good. There were, I think, 2 of them with like holes in the boots. Not really sure what happened there. I'm not sure if the 3D print was just too thin and some of the plaster seeped through. But overall, like, the weapon turned out really good. The platform turned out good. The details and like the helmet and the scope and everything, pretty good. Actually, I think they all had holes in the boots. Not really sure what caused it, but I guess it makes it look a little bit more worn. It's funny because the smaller statues actually had a harder time turning out than the full-size statues. And then here's the Grim Reaper. We've made several of these before, and for some reason, I don't know why, I keep getting these holes in the back in the exact same spots. So it's pretty similar to like the boots over here. I'm not sure what's causing these. I don't know if it's trapped air or if it's just plaster seeping through the 3D print in these spots, and that's what's causing the hole here. Because here's 2 that I cast in Tenzalloy, which is an aluminum alloy. And you can see they have the exact same spots on them where it didn't fill in. Now this one's a little bit larger, but it's the exact same spots. There's 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. Like, what the heck? I don't know what's doing that. So that kind of sucks, but overall the detail and everything on this is perfect. A little bit of flashing here. There's like a small air bubble here and here, but those will quickly grind down. The platform turned out really good. The inside is perfect. We did get quite a bit of flashing on this one for some reason. I think because this one was pretty close to the edge of the flask, I think that's what caused it to break through. Because, I mean, there was only like maybe an 1/8 inch on each side of it for the flask. And so there wasn't very much plaster there, and I think that's why it broke through. And then there's also some air bubbles around, which those will clean up easy too. Moving on, we have another Chris Redfield. He turned out very good. The shotgun is fully formed. You can see the line got severed right there. The knife fully formed, which is pretty awesome. All of his pockets and everything. The face detail is perfect, and the hair as well. So that's very nice to see. I don't really see any flashing or air bubbles, so that's very good. Goku turned out amazing. I think there might be a couple little air bubbles or something, maybe a tiny bit of flashing somewhere, but overall I think he turned out amazing. The muscular detail is incredible. It even captured like all the veins on the arms and like all the back muscles. The hair is like perfectly spiky. The face looks great, and all the folds in the pants look really good. Then obviously here we had two more. So these ones, I should have been holding it under the light right here the whole time, but you could see here pretty much the same. I don't think there was anything really different between these two and the first one. I can't wait to clean these up. These are gonna look awesome. The pants already kind of have that orange color from the high copper silicon bronze, so it kind of actually looks really cool right now. Might be a little hard to tell on camera, but you can see a little bit better here. It's like already kind of orange. And lastly, there's Shenron. Now he turned out way better than I ever thought he could turn out. Everything on Shenron turned out amazing. The spikes and the scales on the body, the claws are perfect on both arms, which are actually very hard to get done right. You can see like I barely was able to make it on some of the claws. The metal just barely filled it in, especially on the other side. You can see like I barely got the claws to finish. Even the gigantic base here turned out awesome. I can't wait to sandblast that and see how good it is. Right now it looks pretty good, but it might be better than I'm thinking it's going to be. I think there might be a little bit of shrinkage, but this large feeder here definitely helped keep this solid. That's for sure. So I'm glad I went with something this large. The hair, the eyes, all the spikes on the head, the antlers, everything is amazing. Now, there is one problem with him, which if you haven't already been able to tell, his whiskers here did not fully form, which was kind of the main fear going into casting this. I already kind of figured that was going to be kind of hard. Now I do have some ideas how to solve that. What I'm thinking about doing is taking like one of these smaller vents that I have and cutting it to like reshape the whiskers here. So luckily it's just something thin and tiny and it's just a smaller detail. We should be able to make that work, but now let's go ahead and sandblast. Okay, I got everything sandblasted and everything is pretty much the same. There's only, I think, two small things I want to go over. So the first one is that for some reason on the hands of the Gokus, and it's only the Gokus, and it's even on another casting here as well, just not as bad. For some reason, it's pretty rough texture. I don't know if you can really make that out on camera, but normally when I see something like this, I would think it's because of a mold metal reaction. But since everything else across all of the castings turned out really good, I don't think it's because of that. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's because of the 3D print porosity. I'm really not sure. It's hard to tell. It should still smooth out. I'll just need to grind it down just a little and hopefully get it nice and smooth, but everything else still pretty much the same. The Shenron, just as good as it looked with the plaster taken off. That platform is actually even better than I thought. There's only a tiny little bit of shrinkage, it looks like right here. There were a little bit more air bubbles than I thought. Like you could see quite a bit more on the hairline here, and a couple on the face, but overall there's really not that many. Those will come off really easy too. There is a little bit of flashing on the spikes here, but nothing too bad, nothing that won't take a lot of time to fix. So now that we have these partially sandblasted, all we have to do now is go through, take off all the flashing, the sprues, the air bubbles, etc. Kind of just getting everything to look normal.
Why have you summoned me? Tell me your wish now.
Well, thanks for sticking around for the video, guys. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, actually pretty ecstatic. I gotta say, this might be one of the largest, if not the largest, solid bronze sculpture on YouTube. I don't know, I gotta look into that, but I mean, this thing is absolutely massive. I forgot to take a picture of the actual weight. This thing is very, very heavy. It's completely solid all the way. The only thing that I was a little disappointed in were obviously the whiskers. I kind of expected those not to fill out just because they were so thin and narrow. I tried welding these on, did not go to plan. Every single time I tried to weld it, the welds just broke no matter what I did. I tried doing tons of different stuff. I tried using solder. I tried using my oxyacetylene torch on this and just welding it several different ways. Like once I tried just melting the filler metal. The other time I tried melting the base metal with the filler metal. I tried heating up the surrounding areas like the face here and also like along the whiskers, not just where the joint was connected. I tried heating that up too and then welding. Every single time it broke. I could not get it to work. I think the only way that you can weld something like that is through a very good TIG welder, which I do not have, and it's the one thing I wish I did buy with that business loan. All I did was I took some of my silicon bronze filler rod here and I super glued it at first, but then I did some epoxy glue, sanded it down, and then I put on some JB Weld and I stuffed in a bunch of my silicon bronze swarf dust to blend in the color a lot more, and then I just sanded that down, buffed everything a final time, and I gotta say it almost turned out even better than it probably would have if the whiskers actually did fill out. So if you liked the video, please leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, and until then guys, I'll see you in the next one.